The Startup Owner's Manual by Steve Blank and Bob Dorff. Introduction. Have you ever heard the story of Webvan? In the late 1990s, at the peak of the dot-com boom, Webvan was the startup everyone was talking about. Their idea was brilliant, simple, and felt like the future: online grocery shopping with same-day, door-to-door delivery. Imagine, no more crowded aisles, no more long checkout lines. Just point, click, and your groceries appear at your home. They raised an astonishing amount of money, more than $800 million. They did everything you're supposed to do. They hired a seasoned CEO. They built enormous, state-of-the-art automated warehouses, marvels of engineering with miles of conveyor belts. They bought fleets of delivery trucks. They built a beautiful, easy-to-use website. And their first customers, they actually liked the service. On the day of their initial public offering, the company was valued at over $8 billion, more than the top 3 grocery chains combined. It seemed like they couldn't lose. And yet, just 24 months later, Webvan was bankrupt. Out of business. All that money, all that technology, all that promise, gone. What happened? It's a question that haunted Silicon Valley for years. They didn't fail because they couldn't build the technology. They didn't fail because they ran a sloppy operation. They executed their business plan almost perfectly. They failed because their business plan was wrong. They built a magnificent, billion-dollar solution for a customer that didn't really exist in the way they imagined. They scaled up a massive company to serve a market they had never truly understood. They had all the answers, but they had never asked the right questions. For decades, the story of Webvan was seen as a cautionary tale. But one man, a serial entrepreneur named Steve Blank, saw it as something more. He saw it as a symptom of a deep, fundamental misunderstanding of what a startup actually is. Having built and been a part of 8 different startups over 21 years in Silicon Valley, he had seen this pattern of failure again and again. He saw brilliant founders with world-changing ideas burn through fortunes because they were following a map that led them straight off a cliff. And so, he set out to draw a new map. In the next hour, I'm going to share with you the framework that Steve Blank and his co-author Bob Dorff laid out in the Startup Owner's Manual. This isn't just a collection of tips, it's a completely different way of thinking about building a company. By the end of our time together, you'll understand the single biggest mistake that causes startups to fail, and you'll have a step-by-step guide to make sure yours doesn't. This is the playbook that launched the lean startup movement and has changed the face of entrepreneurship forever. Book summary. To understand the revolution that Steve Blank started, we first have to understand the old world he was trying to tear down. The world that built Webvan. For most of the 20th century, if you wanted to start a company or launch a new product, you followed a very specific process. It was a process borrowed from large, established companies like General Motors or Procter & Gamble. It was taught in every business school, and it looks something like this. First, you have a brilliant idea. You lock yourself away and write a massive business plan, a document that lays out your vision, your market research, your 5-year financial forecast, everything. This document becomes your holy book. Next, you use that plan to raise money. Lots of it. Then, you go into stealth mode. You hire a team of engineers and tell them to build the product exactly as you specified in your plan. This is the waterfall method of development, a long, sequential process where everything flows in one direction, from concept to final product, with no turning back. The team is fueled by cold pizza and the belief that if they just build it, customers will come. While the engineers are building, the marketing team starts preparing for the Big Bang launch. They create slick brochures, plan a huge press event, and hire a PR agency to create buzz. The sales team starts hiring reps to be ready for the flood of orders. Finally, after a year, maybe two, you launch the product. You throw a big party, the press writes about you, and you wait for the money to roll in. This process feels orderly. It feels professional. It's how big companies launch new flavors of toothpaste or the next model of a car. And for them, it works, because they already know their customers, their market, and what features people want. But here's the terrifying secret that Steve Blank uncovered. For a startup, this process is toxic. It is a recipe for disaster. Because it's built on a series of flawed, and often fatal, assumptions. Blank calls them the 9 deadly sins of this old model, but they all boil down to one core misunderstanding. The first and most dangerous sin is the assumption that you know what the customer wants. On day one, a startup has no customers. It has a founder's vision, which is really just a series of untested guesses. The old model tells you to treat those guesses as facts. It tells you to spend millions of dollars and years of your life building a product based on a faith-based initiative. You operate under the delusion that you have all the answers inside your own building. The second sin flows from the first, the assumption that you know what features to build. Founders fall in love with their product idea and proceed to cram every feature they can imagine into the first version. They spend months, even years, perfecting a product in a vacuum, only to discover after launch that customers don't care about most of those painstakingly built features. It's like building a Swiss Army knife with 100 tools, when all your customer wanted was a simple pair of scissors. The third sin is the obsessive focus on the launch date. Everything is a mad dash to that one big day. This fire, ready, aim strategy leaves no room for learning, for wrong turns, or for iteration. It assumes every step will proceed flawlessly. But as the military saying goes, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And for a startup, the customer is that first contact. Webvan was a perfect student of these sins. They executed their plan flawlessly. They spent $1 billion building warehouses before they had validated that enough customers would actually pay for their service to make the economics work. By the time they launched, they discovered that their assumptions, made years earlier, were wrong. The market had changed. Customers behaved differently than their spreadsheets predicted. And by then, it was too late. They had built an expensive, scaled-up organization designed to execute a plan, not to learn and adapt. And this leads us to the single most important idea in the entire book, the epiphany that changes everything. A startup is not a smaller version of a large company. Let that sink in for a moment. It seems simple, but it's a profound distinction. A large company executes a known business model. It knows who its customers are, what they want, and how to reach them. Its job is to grow and optimize that model. A startup, on the other hand, is a temporary organization designed to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. The key word there is search. A startup begins with nothing but a series of guesses. A set of hypotheses. The job of the founder is not to execute a rigid plan, but to turn those guesses into facts. And the only way to do that is to get out of the building. This is the central mantra of the entire book, the phrase Steve Blank is most famous for: there are no facts inside your building, so get outside. Facts live where your customers live. They're in their offices, their homes, their daily routines. Your job is to go on a journey of discovery, to find those facts, and to use them to build your business. The process for this journey is called customer development. It's a 4-step framework that stands in direct opposition to the old, disastrous product introduction model. Instead of writing a business plan, you start with a different tool, the business model canvas. Imagine a single sheet of paper divided into 9 boxes. This is your canvas. These boxes represent the 9 building blocks of any business. Who are your customer segments? What is the value proposition you offer them? What problem are you solving? How do you reach them through your channels? What kind of customer relationships will you have? How will you make money through your revenue streams? What key activities do you need to perform? What key resources do you need? Who are your key partners? And what is your cost structure? On day one, you don't write a detailed plan. You just fill these 9 boxes with your best guesses, using sticky notes. We think our customers are teenage gamers. We think they'll pay a monthly subscription. We think we'll reach them through YouTube ads. This canvas is not a static document. It's a dynamic scorecard. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to take every one of those sticky notes, every hypothesis, and test it in the real world. This leads us to the heart of the customer development process, which is guided by a set of 14 core principles that Blank calls the Customer Development Manifesto. We don't have time to go through all of them, but they orbit around a few powerful ideas. The first, as we've said, is that there are no facts inside your building. The founders themselves must be the ones to get out and talk to customers. You cannot delegate this. Employees and consultants don't have the same skin in the game. They won't hear the subtle cues, and they're often afraid to deliver bad news. Only a founder can hear a customer say, "I would never use this," and have the power to instantly change the company's direction. The second big idea is to pair customer development with agile development. The old waterfall method of engineering is too slow and rigid. You need an engineering team that can build the product iteratively, in small, rapid increments. You go out, you talk to customers, you learn something new on Monday. By Friday, the engineering team should have a new version of the product ready that incorporates that learning. This rapid feedback loop of build, measure, learn is the engine of a lean startup. The third, and perhaps most difficult idea to embrace is that failure is an integral part of the search. In a large company, if you fail to hit your plan, you get fired. In a startup, the plan is just a set of hypotheses, and most of them will be wrong. Failure isn't a screw-up, it's learning. When an experiment fails, you don't fire the founder, you change the business model. This leads to the concept of the pivot. A pivot is not just a small change, like changing the color of a button. A pivot is a substantive change to one of the 9 boxes on your business model canvas. It's recognizing that your initial guess about your customer segment was wrong, and you need to target a completely different group. Or that your revenue model is flawed, and you need to switch from a subscription to an ad-supported model. The story of Groupon is a legendary example of a pivot. It started as a company called The Point, a social media platform for organizing people to solve problems. The company was struggling, running out of money. But the founders noticed that the most popular campaigns on their site were ones where people grouped together to get a discount on a purchase. So they tried an experiment. They started a simple blog and posted 1 deal a day. The very first offer was for 2-for-1 pizzas at the shop on the first floor of their building. 20 people bought it. And in that moment, Groupon was born. They pivoted away from their original, failing idea and towards this new, promising one. That pivot led to a company once valued at over $12 billion. Successful founders don't cling to their initial vision in the face of contradictory facts. They are ruthless in their search for truth, and they have the courage to pivot when the evidence tells them to. Now, let's look at the 4 steps of the customer development process itself. The entire framework is divided into 2 main parts, the search and the execution. The first 2 steps, customer discovery and customer validation, are all about the search. Step 1 is customer discovery. The goal here is simple: to find out if you've identified a real problem that a specific group of customers wants to see solved. The question you're trying to answer is, do people care? This is where you take your business model canvas, with all its hypotheses, and you get out of the building. You're not trying to sell anything yet. You are a detective, looking for clues. You find people you think might be your customers, and you talk to them about their problems, their needs, their daily lives. You're trying to understand their world so deeply that you can see it through their eyes. In this phase, you are looking for a very special type of person, the early evangelist. This isn't just an early adopter who likes new gadgets. An early evangelist is someone who has 5 distinct traits. 1. They have a problem. 2. They know they have a problem. 3. They are actively searching for a solution. 4. The problem is so painful that they've cobbled together their own makeshift solution. 5. And critically, they have a budget or the authority to spend money to solve it. These are the people who will be your partners in discovery. They are so desperate for a solution that they are willing to buy an early, unfinished, buggy product from a brand new company. If you can't find any early evangelists, you probably don't have a problem worth solving. While you're talking to potential customers, your engineering team isn't building the entire, full-featured product. They are building a minimum viable product, or MVP. The MVP is the smallest possible version of your product that can test your core hypothesis. Its goal is maximum learning, not maximum features. For a physical product, an MVP might be a simple prototype or even a presentation that shows how the product will work. For a web or mobile product, it could be a simple landing page that describes the value proposition and asks people to sign up if they're interested. This is called a low-fidelity MVP. Its only purpose is to see if your understanding of the customer's problem is correct. Customer discovery is a 4-phase process in itself. Phase 1. You state your hypotheses on the canvas. Phase 2. You get out of the building to test the problem. Do you have this problem? How painful is it? How are you solving it now? Phase 3. You get out of the building again, but this time you test the solution. You show them your MVP and ask, does this solve your problem? Phase 4. You look at all the data you've gathered and you make a decision. Do you verify your hypotheses and proceed, or do you pivot and change your model? Most startups will cycle through this discovery loop many times. Each cycle brings them closer to what's called problem/solution fit. This is the magic moment when you found a problem that customers care about, and you have a solution that they agree solves it. Once you believe you have problem/solution fit, you move to step 2, customer validation. The goal of this step is to prove that you have a repeatable and scalable business model. The question you're answering now is not just do people care, but can we build a real, profitable business around this? This is where you try to get your first real orders. You're test selling. You take your MVP, which by now might be a more polished, high-fidelity version, and you try to sell it to your early evangelists. You're not trying to build a massive sales organization yet. In fact, that's one of the biggest mistakes a startup can make, what Blank calls premature scaling. Hiring a huge sales and marketing team before you have a validated business model is the fastest way to burn through your cash and go out of business. Instead, the founders, perhaps with the help of a single sales closer, are still the ones out there selling. But they are selling with a different purpose. Their goal is not just to get revenue, it's to create a sales roadmap. A sales roadmap is your playbook. It's the documented, step-by-step process that you've discovered for turning a stranger into a paying customer. It answers questions like, who is the real decision maker? How many meetings does it take to close a deal? What are the key objections we need to overcome? What is our customer acquisition cost? For a web or mobile business, customer validation is about optimizing your get, keep, and grow funnel. Get: how do you acquire customers and activate them? You run dozens of small, cheap experiments with online ads, social media, and email to see what works. Keep: how do you retain your customers and stop them from leaving? You analyze their behavior and build loyalty programs. Grow. How do you get your existing customers to spend more money or, even better, to refer their friends? This is where you measure your viral loop. The validation step is a series of pass/fail tests. If your hypothesis says that for every dollar you spend on ads, you can get $2 in revenue, you run a small test to see if that's true. If it is, you've validated that part of your model. If it's not, you pivot. You change your pricing, your channel, or your customer segment, and you test again. You stay in this validation loop until you have hard, quantitative proof that your business model works. You have a repeatable sales process, a predictable sales funnel, and a profitable financial model. Only when you have achieved this, what's called product/market fit, are you ready to move on to the next two steps, customer creation and company building. These are the execution steps. This is where you finally hit the gas pedal. In customer creation, you take your validated sales and marketing playbook and you start spending serious money to scale up. You ramp up your marketing spend to create end-user demand on a large scale. And in company building, your organization transitions from a temporary startup focused on searching into a stable company focused on executing. This is where you hire VPs of sales and marketing, build formal departments, and instill the processes needed to manage a rapidly growing company. It's a journey from chaos to structure, from search to execution. And often, this is where the founding entrepreneur, the passionate visionary who thrived in the chaos of the search, may no longer be the right person to lead the company. Sometimes, they are replaced by a professional operating executive. It can be a bittersweet moment, but it's a sign that the startup has succeeded in its mission. It has found a repeatable, scalable, and profitable business model. The whole philosophy of the Startup Owner's Manual can be summed up in this: it replaces the old model of build it and they will come with a new model of learn, build, measure, and iterate. It transforms entrepreneurship from a black art, based on luck and intuition, into a science, based on a rigorous, evidence-based process. It doesn't guarantee success, but it dramatically increases your odds of finding it before you run out of money. It gives you a map for navigating the fog of uncertainty that surrounds every new venture. Commentary. What I find so powerful about this book is its honesty. It completely demystifies the startup process. For so long, we've been fed this myth of the lone genius founder who has a perfect, world-changing vision from day one. They see the future, they build it, and the world bows down. The Startup Owner's Manual strips away that myth and replaces it with a more realistic, and frankly, more empowering picture. It shows us that the entrepreneur is not a fortune teller, they are a scientist and an artist. A scientist who rigorously designs experiments and tests their assumptions against reality. And an artist who has the vision to see what could be, but also the courage to change course, to pivot, based on what they learn from their customers. This book is dense. It's not a novel you read on a weekend. As the title says, it's a manual, a step-by-step, how-to guide that you keep by your side for the entire, often grueling, journey of building a company. It's filled with checklists, diagrams, and specific instructions for every phase. It's a reference book for the trenches. But the core philosophy is incredibly simple and applies to so much more than just tech startups. Whether you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel, launching a small business in your town, or even just proposing a new project at school or work, the principles are the same. It's about not falling in love with your first idea, but falling in love with your customer's problem. It's about having the humility to admit that your initial ideas are just guesses, and having the discipline to test them before you bet your time, your money, and your reputation on them. So, how can you start applying these ideas today, right now? First, for any idea you have, take out a single sheet of paper and try to sketch out the 9 boxes of the business model canvas. Don't overthink it. Just ask yourself, who is my customer? What value am I really providing them? How will I reach them? How will I make money? Just the act of putting your guesses on paper is a powerful first step. It forces clarity and reveals the gaps in your thinking. Second, and this is the most important and the most difficult step, pick one of your most critical assumptions and design a simple, cheap way to test it. Most important, find 5 people who you think might be your customer. Don't try to sell them anything. Don't even talk about your idea at first. Just ask them about their problems. Say something like, "Tell me about the last time you tried to," and then just listen. Listen more than you talk. This is the first, small step of getting out of the building. And it's the most crucial one. The journey of an entrepreneur is often described as a hero's journey. It's a call to adventure, a departure from the known world into a realm of uncertainty, fear, and doubt. What Steve Blank and Bob Dorf have given us in the Startup Owner's Manual is not a guarantee that you'll slay the dragon and win the treasure. But they have given us a map and a compass. They've shown us that the path, while incredibly difficult, is not a complete mystery. It's a process. It's a science. And by following it, you're not just building a business, you're building a better version of yourself, one that is more resilient, more curious, and more in tune with the world you're trying to change. That was a summary of the Startup Owner's Manual by Steve Blank and Bob Dorf. We've touched on the core ideas today, but I'll be completely honest with you. A summary can only show you the map. The real journey happens when you take the steps yourself, when you read the book and let its detailed guidance sink in. It's in the quiet moments, when a specific checklist or a simple phrase from the book clicks into place and solves a problem you've been struggling with for weeks. This summary is your starting point, designed to help you see if this manual is the right guide for your journey. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a fire in you, grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning, it's preparing for the adventure of a lifetime. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new perspective, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.